Welcome to Speaking of Sports. I'm your host, Jared Slack. This week I'm going to start with the NBA. I'm going to touch a little on baseball and finish with some NFL. Let me start with the Dallas Mavericks on Monday night versus the Spurs. This was Luka's night, hands down. If you were a Luka doubter before this game, all your arguments just went out the window. Luka went for 42 points, 12 assists, and 11 rebounds. He was the second youngest person to ever record a 40-point triple-double. Number one was LeBron James, by the way. We are witnessing something great here, and I'm so excited for this Mavs future. Now on to Wednesday night's game versus the Warriors. Just a reminder, this isn't the Golden State Warriors dynasty anymore. Honestly, I did not recognize a single name on the Warriors bench. They're just a bunch of D-League players. They're not so much a great team this year. The Mavs steamrolled over the Warriors 142-94. The Mavs won by 48 after the game. Steve Kerr was asked, what could you have done better to not lose by 48 points? And he said, well, if a couple of things bounced in our direction, we might have only lost by 44 points. He was totally joking, of course, but everybody thought we might not need to laugh at him right now. He's probably not in the best mood. But that night, Luka had 35 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds in only 25 minutes. The youngest player to ever record back-to-back 30-point triple-doubles. Like I said, we're witnessing something great here in Dallas. Okay, now I'm going to transition to some baseball, talk about the free agent market right now. I'm going to talk Yasmani Grandal. He just signed a 4-year, $73 million deal with the Chicago White Sox. That was the Rangers' top prospect for the catcher position. And but they would have had, just like the White Sox just did, they would have had to pay a pretty penny for him. And another name that keeps circling around the Rangers is Robertson Chirinos. He could possibly be making a comeback to the Texas Rangers. That would be a decent asset for the Rangers just because he's familiar with the club. He's an average hitter, maybe slightly below average, but he's a good defensive catcher. And if you bring him back, you could spend that money in other areas, such as third base for Josh Donaldson or somebody like that, possibly outfield. It looks as if the Rangers might be trying to get rid of some of their so-called DHs, possibly like Willie Calhoun or Sensu Chu or Nomar Mazara. I really don't want to get rid of Nomar because I feel like every single year, and we might say this for his whole career, but every year he's going to kick it into gear. And he was, at one point, his comparison was like Josh Hamilton. He was a great prospect as a kid, but he's kind of grown up into just an average MLB player, and that might be somebody you need to get rid of and bring in someone else at that right field spot that can hit for well above average and just bring in some runs. So the number one pick for catcher for the Rangers, Yasmani Grandal, is not going to be an option anymore. Look for lower line players like Robertson Chirinos, somebody like that, or possibly a trade. You could do a multiple player trade, maybe even a prospect for somebody that's already an established catcher, and that can already jump into the lineup and be a major asset this next year. Okay, now I'm going to review some Week 11 games from the NFL. I'm going to start with the Texans and Ravens. Prior to this game, this was talked up. This was a highly anticipated game. And all in all, it kind of ended in a disappointment. The Ravens just whipped up on the Texans. It wasn't even a competition. The Ravens won 41-7. Lamar Jackson put up some big numbers, and Deshaun Watson didn't. I don't know if this is going to completely destroy Deshaun Watson's MVP candidacy or anything, but it did not help it whatsoever. The Cowboys and Lions, this was kind of an expected game by the Cowboys, not defensively. Defensively, they put up some numbers that they did not need to put up. Offensively, Dak threw for 444 passing yards. He was the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. He did very well in this game, and that was totally expected. The Falcons, they kicked it into gear these past few games. Like I said last week, they might have been a little too late, but they beat the Panthers 29-3. The Saints stepped back up. They did. They beat the Bucks 34-17. The Cardinals and the 49ers. This was a good game right here because it was just a one-loss 49ers team against Kyler Murray. It came down to the end, but ultimately the 49ers won 36-26. The Patriots and Eagles, this was a great defensive game. It seems like the Patriots aren't putting up that much numbers this year. Tom Brady doesn't really have a whole lot of weapons besides Julian Edelman, and the Patriots won that game 17-10. There's a lot of drama going on in the Eagles clubhouse. Kind of circled around Carson Wentz about how he might not be the quarterback that they want, or it just seems like a mess over there in Philadelphia. Okay, now I'm going to review the Week 12 game between the Patriots and Cowboys. This is going to be it's in Foxborough, so obviously the Patriots are going to be favored. And before the year started, of course, whenever you're going through the schedule, you mark this one down as a loss, and you move on to the next week. But if the Cowboys could pull this off, what could this mean? Right now, the Cowboys got a one-game lead on the Eagles in the NFC East. This week, the Eagles play the Seahawks, which the way the Eagles are kind of spiraling downwards, they could possibly lose this game against the Seahawks because Seattle's putting up some good numbers this year. Russell Wilson's having a great year. If the Cowboys could somehow pull this out, they would have a 2-game lead and possibly coast to division champs this year, which would be great for the Cowboys. But that's a big if, because they got to face the Patriots in Foxborough this year. And some keys to this game, I believe. Patriots, obviously, one of the best defenses ever this year, coached by Bill Belichick himself. He personally made this his job this year, was to coach that defense, and he has done a very good job at that. I don't know if Dak is going to be able to pass as much as he was able to in these past few games, but if he's not able to, I think the Patriots are allowing 150 passing yards this year, which is an insane number. The only points they've really allowed to was the Ravens, which I think that might be the only good team that the Patriots have faced this year, and they've lost. So they could be another one of those, well, they haven't played anybody kind of teams. But I highly doubt it, because it is a Bill Belichick coach defense, and you never know what to expect, because he can figure things out that you didn't even know that was a weakness for you. And that could be a positive that you take out of this week, because if you come out of this week in a loss, you can figure out what Bill Belichick did to you that really picked apart your offense. And that could really be a positive thing, because if he figures something out like, oh, they're good at this or bad at this, and we need to attack here, maybe you step back and look at it and say, hey, how do you know that? And you figure that out, and in the future, that doesn't happen again. Maybe in the playoffs, somebody says, oh, the Patriots did this to him, so let's do it. But you already got it figured out. So that could be a positive look on things if you lose to the Patriots this week. Like I said, it's going to be a very tough matchup. It's going to be cold, and it's going to be rainy. So might not see a lot of passing yards. Just hope that Zeke holds onto that ball, puts up some big numbers, and hope that the defense covers the screens and the short passes from Tom Brady, because I think that they're going to want to do this against that Cowboys defense. They are not too good this year at covering that short pass. They can't wrap up for some reason. They overrun tackles. They're just not doing very well when it comes to those short passes. Overall, the safeties and cornerbacks are really covering very well for the Cowboys. And so you might not see as many downfield passes from Tom. You're probably going to see a lot of runs and a lot of screens from James White this week. And so if you got him in your fantasy league, I would start him because the Cowboys are terrible against the screen passes, and I think that's what they're going to do. Now I'm going to give you the Week 11 Fantasy Football Perfect lineup. This was a close race for the quarterbacks. Just 2 points separated the top three quarterbacks here. Josh Allen made the number one quarterback for Week 11. He had 256 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 56 rushing yards with the touchdown. So he had 4 touchdowns overall with 33.84 points. Number 2 and 3 quarterbacks were Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott. For your running backs, Christian McCaffrey, what a year he had. He had 70 rushing yards. He had 11 receptions for 121 receiving yards for 30.10 points. Mark Ingram, your number 2 running back, he had 48 rushing yards. He had 3 receptions, 37 yards for 2 touchdowns for 23.5 points. Your wide receiver, John Brown for the Bills. He had 9 receptions, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's been putting up some big numbers this year. Well, whenever he's not hurt. He had 34.7 points. DJ Clark, he had 8 receptions, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, 30.4 points. Your flex position, Calvin Ridley. He had 8 receptions, 143 yards, 1 touchdown for 28.3 points. Your tight end spot, Travis Kelce. He had 7 receptions, 92 yards, 1 touchdown for 22.2 points. They really relied on him late in the game after Tyreek Hill went out, and it seemed like he came up big for them. Your kicker, Bills kicker, Stephen Housecock. He had 4 PATs. He had 1 field goal made, 29 yards. He had 1 field goal made, 30 to 39 yards. He had 150 plus for 15 points. Your defense for Week 11 was the Atlanta Falcons. Like I said, they really stepped it up these past few weeks. They had 5 sacks, 4 interceptions. They had 1 touchdown. They only allowed 3 points, and they had a total of 26 points. And that totals up to be 244 total points for Week 11. That was not a very good week fantasy-wise, but it's still an exciting week in the NFL. Cannot wait for Week 12 to begin. It's going to be an overall great week. The Seahawks and Eagles, Cowboys, Patriots. This is going to be a very great week, and I'm very excited to get to it. That's all I have for this week. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Sports. Make sure to listen to my podcast. Comes on noon on Fridays, just 2 hours before the video airs. Go to the Mute Mogul Media radio show on Facebook. Download the app. Listen to it. If you're too busy to watch the video weekly, just download that podcast. Listen to it instead. Next week, I'm going to talk more NFL, more NBA. Hopefully, we got some MLB free agency news for you. Until then, thank you for listening to Speaking of Sports. I've been your host, Jared Slack.